All right, welcome everyone to this Force Friday. Today we're going to talk about drawing from reference and drawing from imagination, and what does that mean, right? Is one better than the other, right? Which is one of the big questions that we're posing today, or not? Or is there some way of combining the two? How do you do that or not, right? And is there a bridge between the two or not? And just kind of have an open conversation. So we're going to start there with Muttunjay, Swenley, and myself. We're just going to kind of talk this through, and then you're going to get to watch Muttunjay and Swenley draw today around the subject matter that we're going to share at the front end. So, hey guys, how's it going? How you doing, Muttunjay?
Hey Mike, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good.
Excited?
I'm excited. This is a subject that's come up quite a bit over mentorship over the last couple of weeks. I'm really excited to talk about this today.
Yep.
And how's it going, Swenley?
Good. Excited to play with some shapes later on.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a lot of fun today with you guys because we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna have Muttunjay and Swenley to do two very different things with model photographs today, based off the conversation we're gonna have here at the front end. So, so welcome those of you that are already here. Hope you guys are doing well. You've had a good week, and let's get to it. All right, so let's get back to Photoshop. So drawing from reference and imagination, right? You'll notice in the thumbnail, I kind of tried to just abstract this because, as you may know from prior videos and from my books, I usually talk about these three steps in drawing, which is like the eyeball, the brain, and the hand, right? It's like the seeing, the thinking aspect, and the physical aspect equal drawing, right? So for this reference or imagination concept, a lot of it is about leaning on your eyeball or leaning on your brain. Most of the work that you see in artists drawing from reference is like leaning on your eyeball. And I think the problem is you can lean into either one a little bit too much. And that's what we're going to share today. And I'm going to write, hopefully somewhat legibly, for you guys to be able to read my notes on this. So I moved these guys over to this fulcrum, right, to this teeter-totter or balance, because that's what we want to try to figure out. Is there a way of balancing this? And if so, like, how does that work, right? So what I found is that when people draw from reference, the trick here is to not copy, right? Because it leads to copying, right? You want to make sure you don't copy. Is copying bad? I don't know. We talked about this in a prior video, right? I'm saying not copy. I've copied. I think all of us have copied at one point or another, right? Because that's where you learn, you're like looking at things. The problem with copying is, if you think about copying, you're just almost like visually, tracing what you're looking at. To sound a little mean about it, it's a little more thoughtless, right? Because you're looking and you're copying, right? But if it's not, right, and you're looking, man, there's a lot that you can learn, right? There's a huge amount of learning that can actually occur from looking, right? A huge amount, right? And I agree, I believe in this, and this is how my art education actually happened. I really learned to draw from reference, and then the other side is the side I had to really figure out, which, like I said, we're going to share with you today. And hopefully, what I'm getting at here is we're going to learn how to cross that bridge. Because for me, I had a hard time. I was standing over here, right? And I had to figure out, like, how am I going to make my way over here? I mean, I drew from this as a kid, but it wasn't any good, right? So I learned all of my sort of technique over here, and then had to figure out, how does this stuff start coming in over here? So when we're drawing from reference, like I said, we want to stay away from copying. You don't want it to just become tracing or have it become thoughtless. You want to try to learn about what you're looking at, right? And for artists that I see coming from imagination, what happens there? Well, it's usually a lot of skill. There's a lot of skill that happens here on usually structure. I would say people who get any good at drawing from imagination usually have learned a lot of structure, right? So, this perspective, right? That's like I would say the skill that people in this, artists on this side, get from drawing from imagination, is all this structural stuff. if they're lucky, they may even get to something like shape and try to design things, right? If they're lucky, they may get there, right? What's the downside, right? What do you guys think would the downside be of drawing from imagination? Any thoughts from Swinley or Matunje? Are you guys out there? What do you think would be bad
Yeah,
about
I
this
would
one?
say, I would say like, first of all, I find that you rob yourself of infinite pool of inspiration that is found in reality. And with
Yeah,
that also, you know, like you need to refer to real life to bring a certain sense of believability and truth to your drawing. So if you're only relying on imagination, um, it's not going to be as informed, I would say, as when you use reference, you know, unless you have like a super good memory that, you know, or photographic memory that remembers everything by seeing it once. You have to
right.
keep going back to reality to bring those little details and nuances that will make your drawing so much richer and so much more interesting to look at.
Yeah, until
Yeah, I
you're
agree with you. Go
yeah,
ahead, Matunje.
Kim Jong-gi, you know. So he's like
Yeah,
this graphic symbol. Um,
right.
yeah, so the challenge for me is like drawing from imagination is until you have seen one thing and you haven't studied it like at least to a point where you can draw it from imagination. And people who are just taking it to another level, just like, yeah, the more you can draw from imagination, the better you are. But the thing is, the artists who can draw from imagination very well have studied that thing a lot. Okay, so let's say a human being or like anatomy or whatever. So if you haven't studied it well, you cannot draw from imagination very well, you know, that way. So I would say just drawing from imagination it's coming from that study part. Okay, you cannot skip it. Okay, basically, just don't want to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with both of you. I mean, I've found that, and this is kind of a double-edged sword. So, in all sincerity, like what I've seen over my years is I've seen professionals who are out there today without naming names, who are people who learned how to draw from imagination and have done really well. And because of that, they also, in a sense, like found their own voice because I believe that style is what you're good at and what you're not good at, or what you're good at and what you're ignorant at, what you don't know either, right? And you kind of like find your style because of that. Um, is that good? Again, is that good or bad? I'm not saying I have no judgment on that. I just want you to be aware, like that's kind of what happens. But I can only speak from my background, and I've found that the more um, honest my mind is, the more truthful it is to seeing well and seeing clearly, the more information gathering I can do to inform myself of better design, right? Of design that, as Swenley was saying, makes things richer and more unique. The irony is, now that I think about it, is lots of new students, when they come and learn to draw from a model, oddly enough, it's the uniqueness they don't see, right? The model becomes like a generic model. It's almost like a mannequin, right? And weirdly, drawing from imagination, that's usually what people do, is they create their own sort of mental mannequin, because you're trapped in your own head, right? You're trapped in your own little world, and you've like figured things out. Like, this is what people look like. This is what a man looks like. This is what a woman looks like. And you kind of stick to that. A lot of comic book artists, by the way, fall into that space. And usually education in comic book schools and classes and drawing the figure are based around how do you create a mental mannequin, right? Because you got to draw these figures in action poses doing different things, and you've learned about boxes and tubes and all that stuff, but that makes it really generic, right? And yet, in time, if you become sensitive to looking at reality, you start to see like, wow, people are really different from one another. I know for me, when I was in school, there was this moment where I really realized I need to celebrate the fact that this model's body is not like mine, right? All of a sudden, those are the places I really wanted to magnify and explode in the model, because I was like, they're more flat-footed than I am. They have long toes, and I have a shorter toe, or longer hands or smaller hands, right? And their head's a different shape. Their proportions are different than mine. My tricep doesn't look like that. Like, we're all the same, right, anatomically, and yet there's uniqueness, and you have to build your sensitivity really to get to that uniqueness. And going back to Swenley's point, I think man, that's where the richness of life is. You know, it's like getting a better palate, right? Like McDonald's is great in the beginning. You know, you're a teenager, you're eating McDonald's, and you wonder why all the snooty people like all these like fine little tastes of food. And it's like, what a ripoff! You're spending $80 on like this tiny little thing versus $5 from McDonald's. But that's because, you know, so much flavor. Some professional chefs shoved so much flavor into this like tiny morsel of food versus getting a McDonald's burger that you can get anywhere at the same taste, right? It's like, it's different. Like you build your sensitivity, you know? By the way, I love McDonald's fries and chicken nuggets like I do, but I also love really well prepared food, you know? So let's just go back to Photoshop and write some more notes here.
By the way, Kyla has an awesome
Yeah,
comment that you might not really know or remember little nuisances that make it what it is. And you might not only know the overall concept, but not the full details that come with it. So the thing
yeah,
is, the idea is that you gotta make it believable, even if you're like drawing from imagination, and the concept art thing comes here like pretty well. That yeah, even if you're drawing like a creature or something, but it is actually coming from natural world. It's just like humans and animals like mixed with their creativity, but you know you got to make it believable so people believe that yeah, it can exist right there on screen.
yeah, I would agree. You know, to Kyla's point, she's getting at the idea that you might get some big ideas, but the sort of devil's in the details, or to spin that optimistically, richness is in the details, right? And man, finding those things and the nuances and bring that into your own work, I think just makes it better. You know, I'm a very fond advocate of learn from reference, learn what makes things real, and then learn how to stylize and create your own work. And you know, learn the imagination stuff, the skill stuff that lets you draw from imagination. But man, reference, it's hard to beat reference. And most of the pros that I know, most of them out there, are people who would agree with that 100%. You know, there's a guy named Mark Gerner who I don't know if he still is, but he was a huge concept artist for the live action film industry. And he used to teach at my school. And he did not only teach a class, but he would do some talks at the school. And I remember always him bringing in this photograph of a banana slug, and he would say like, look, like he took the pictures himself, which also is awesome. When you go out and photograph your own reference, then it's more personal. And he would like take that, and you know, you can turn that banana slug into an alien or a spaceship, a house, like whatever you want, right? But you're inspired by this thing in reality, right? And if you're creative enough, and you're a lateral thinker, as I call it, meaning, you know, you can problem solve the same thing from all types of different angles. You can take a simple thing and turn it into many different things. But there was a, you know, there was an inspiration point, right, from reality that drove you there. So the bad, I like this good bad thing. What's good here is that you can learn, right? It's good. There's richness. It's basically the opposite of the other side of the scale, right? There's richness, there's inspiration, there's believability, right? That you learn things about how things work over here. I think you learn about function, right? Like all this like looking. And you have to do the imagination side. And when I say imagination, to me, that's more the like brain stuff, right? Because looking is like your eye, and you could be sort of brainless, quite frankly, and just copying stuff. So on the imagination side, I think is when I usually say, this is where we're going to teach you all the skill stuff. Force is over here, by the way, too. It's like learning like templates and stuff like that. It's all this like brainy stuff. But the truth to all of this that I'm trying to get at in today's talk is we actually want to get to the middle. Okay. So the crux of my conversation today with you guys, what I want to share is what I try to teach in at drawingforce.com and in the mentorships, even more specifically, is I try to get the students to work from both sides, right? So you've got the brain stuff and the eye stuff. We want to bring them together. So when you're drawing from reference, you want to act, I would say act as if from imagination. What does that mean, right? What that means is, even though you're looking at the model, I want you to act as if you're not. That means I want you to not just fall comfortably and take for granted that you can see the photograph of the model or see a real model if you're lucky enough. But you're going to draw that model and rebuild them, re-understand them as if you are drawing from imagination. You're going to put in the same amount of work and effort to draw from reference as if you would do from imagination, you see? Because what I find is, and this goes for myself, I went through this myself, which is why I can share it. I can look at a photograph, I can copy it very fast. Like, over the years, I've trained my eye to see and get it really quickly, but that's just me copying. There's no thought in that. I'm not rebuilding the model. I'm not rethinking it. I'm not studying, right? This is more of like a study concept. That's the difference, right? You're starting to study versus copying, right? Versus a copy. So that's what we want to try to do here. Majority of the front end of learning how to draw is that you're looking at something, but you want to not just copy that thing. You want to draw it as if you're recreating it or drawing from imagination. So how does that work from the other side? Well, for those of you that draw from imagination, you want to act as if, right, from reference. What does that mean? That means don't get stuck in your own little world in your head with there's only a couple of answers to all the solutions, right? You want to look at the reference as, based on all the stuff we talked about down here, right? You want to see the richness, you want to be inspired by the uniqueness of things. You want to find the believability, right? Of like we talked about a few weeks ago, like how do I get weight, right, in the body, right? So there's a lot of stuff that comes out of working from reference, right? There's a lot of learning that can happen there that improves your drawing from imagination. Now, ironically, of course, where this all finally really, I think, starts to tie together is what we teach on our website on drawingforce.com, is the idea that force happens to be like an amazing tool to cross this, right? So this, to me, force is down here as a little suspension bridge. Again, I live in the Bay Area, so I go right for suspension. Little Golden Gate action here for you, right? This guy is the bridge, right? Because think about force, right? You may not see force. So when I'm teaching students, lots of times people come in, they want to learn how to draw force. And I usually don't teach them templates first, by the way. I've kind of now backed off of that. And I'm like, I just want you to look at the reference. Let's throw you in the pool. Let's just see if you can find it on your own, right? So that's already a big deal, right? It's like, I'm going to try to look at this reference and I have to go figure things out. You got to play detective a little bit more and try to understand, what's going on, right? It's like, I need to look at the model and try and find force. And as you get to the templates, right, now you're starting to learn more of the mental side of things. It's like, okay, it works. Or even something like leading edge, right? All these other things are like these mental exercises. Like, okay, I need to understand that this is how this thing works. There's different types of torsos, right? So now you're taking the mental and you're trying to bring it over to looking at a reference and trying to understand what you're looking at, right? And that's the bridge. The bridge is you want to be able to see and see clearly. You don't want to copy, but you want to see clearly, but you want to understand what you're looking at, right? If I put this whole meeting today in one sentence, I think that would be it. You want to understand what you're looking at, right? Understand it, understand what you're looking at versus the copying of it all, right? An example of this, by the way, with force, if I just focus down on force on this, is if you learn force and you learn from the models, right, and you learn those templates, you learn how to see all that stuff. When you go to drawing from imagination, right, because now you've learned how those things work and you've seen them in nature, how it actually all operates, it allows you to draw from imagination much more quickly, right? And you'll have seen the uniqueness of different poses, models doing different things, different body types, right? But still with the templates, that allows you to really explode what you draw from imagination, how you draw from imagination, and so on, right? Okay, any questions in the chat that we should field, right? No, doesn't look like it. Okay, you guys have anything you want to share to that before I move forward?
No, let's move on.
Okay, so I want to see, is there any last thing here? The last piece that I did not put in here is, of course, your hands. If we were to go back to the idea of having our triptych here, right? So we've got a hand as well. you know, so that the hands is of course driving what's going on from both of these places, right? It's
Oh
like
my God,
we're,
you're sharing the YouTube screen, not the Photoshop.
oh, sorry guys. Here you go. So you guys, what you're trying to do here is combine, right? The hand finally combines the two, okay? So drawing, just keep in mind, drawing is a physical act, right? So what you're doing is you're driving your eyes and your brain to combine and then siphon down to your hand, and your hand's finally doing all of the acting, right? It's taking action on those thoughts. I'm trying to make sure there's nothing else I forgot here. All right, I think that's it. So what I did here is I very quickly just sketched out for you what I've seen in the past. Here's a photograph of a model. And when I have new students come in, I can spot immediately if someone's a copyist. There's like certain things you can look for. Like I drew this. This is me copying the photograph, right? So it's a little contoury. The line's usually a little more shaky because I'm like, dear God, I hope I get the copy right, right? It's not really indicating work that it takes to figure things out. I'm literally just looking at edges of the photograph and copying around the model, right? Is there benefit to this? Sure there is, right? Like just trying to get things to look right, right? Just straight copy is in itself good. You get some proportion out of this. You might, if you're aware of positive negative space, you might get some of that out of this. But that's like really it. That's all that's really going on for me, okay? Now, on the flip side of things, let's say this photograph's not here. Somebody who draws from imagination, I'll usually see stuff like this, right? It's like somebody who's drawn from creating their own kind of mannequin, and there's like a system that they've taught in place. It's usually tubes and boxes, right, to try and draw the figure. And you get something that's over generic, right? What we want to do, like I said, is we want to put these two worlds together, right? So we want to take this and put these together. I didn't even put force in here yet, quite honestly, right? Like this is just, look, here's copying, this is what we normally get. The bridge between these two is to understand what the body is doing, to get force into the drawings, you know, to be able to see clearly and honestly, and at the same time understand stuff like force and templates and structure, you know, shape design and so on, right? So we want to try to bring all this stuff together. And again, that's the bridge. So what we're going to do today is Mrityunjay is going to start us off. He's going to do a study, and then Swenley is going to back this up at the end with pushing us into inspired drawing, like pushing more into design, right? So it's going to be a real treat to watch the two guys kind of dig into reference in two very different ways. And at the very end of today, I'm going to share with you some exercises that you can go do on your own that help bridge the gap, okay? So let's get started. Let's head over to Mrityunjay.
Yep. All right. So just before drawing, you know, this is just like a little definition I copied it from Google, and I really want to make a point out of it. So this thing is that you can read it right here. Okay, what is reference? Definition of reference is just use of source of information in order to assert in something. Okay, so here you can really see like what the references actually mean. And whenever I'm trying to explain like this whole 1 hour forced Friday into like something in a sentence, I really say them like to students, yeah, just reference, just look at the word, you know what it's saying. Okay, it's reference. It's not saying you to like copy. It's in the name. Okay, so that's the thing, you know what, that's when I want to start there. Take source of info, it's like a source of information to you, and we can also say it's like a source of inspiration for you. Okay, and you're trying to take that and you're trying to understand it. Okay, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a study out of a reference picture. Okay, so and I really like the thought what Mike said about, you know, drawing from reference, take it as you're drawing from imagination, and we're drawing from imagination, take it from, you know, seeing it as a drawing from reference. So we're going to combine both and do like a study to, we'll try to understand the model, okay, the aspect of it, the function of it. Okay, and yeah, just go with it. So I want to start with this one, you know. So the first of all, you know, I don't want to take it too far away from the main topic itself, but the thing is, I choose only the references which kind of inspires me. Okay, so just look here, you know, that's an amazing like dynamic pose, And it's not about like all the time, it's not about dynamism, and the force is not about all the time dynamism. It's about like an emotional side to the figure. Okay, there's like two sides to it. There's like one visual side and one the emotional side, and the emotional side is what basically I go with. So it's kind of like that, how it's like affecting my brain to look at things. So let's do it. So I want to make a study out of it. So here's a reference. If I want to copy it, if like new students know how they actually do it, and that's completely okay, because you just want to learn. So at some point, this is okay. So what you're doing right now is just like, I'm taking the contours of it, I'm trying to like do it. This is not a study, okay? This is completely not a study. Even if you're making it really fine, like measuring the angles and such, like do it something like this and this, that's okay. But I wanna I wanna study like the emotional side of it, how it actually feels to me. Okay, so yeah, let's do it. So I'm gonna start off with its function. Okay, the first thing that I can study is like how that pose is actually working. So he's doing something like this. He's leaning on his one of his legs with his arm. With his arm, you can see like this arm is actually leaning on his leg, and like the stretch arm and the force that he's acting upon, right? So I really want to make a point out of that in my drawing itself. So let's get started with it. So yeah, I'm actually using a little bit of soft touch, I can say. Okay, and here comes a great point. I'll make this what I can say, I'll really like insinuate on this one, that I'm not trying to draw the body. Okay, what I'm just doing is I'm trying to make the function out of it, and the body actually recreating itself, in my drawing. So I'm seeing that the force is coming from the back, and it's going to the head there. Okay, through the way of the neck, and right there is my jaw here. Okay, so you see, I'm going for the function, and that part actually recreates itself in my drawing. Okay, really, like, this is a really powerful thought that you're not even doing it, and it is right in front of you. You're actually making the body out of it. But the only difference between this and copying is it has an understanding to it. Okay, it has like understanding to it. So all the viewers who's gonna look at it, like, yeah, this artist, he's not just copying, he's trying to understand and trying to find solutions to that. The model is actually presenting you challenges. Okay, you can also say it's presenting us with problems, and it's also providing you with answers. Okay, it's not just giving you the problems. Okay, it's also providing you with answers, and it's completely based upon you that you need to find that out. So again, I'm going for the function. I was like, oh no, yeah, he's going from here to here upon that. And yeah, what I want to do with it, maybe let's something like this. Okay, the point why I choose this reference is because now you see here, this hand is actually blocking up that body a little bit. So the reason why I made these lines, there has a meaning to it again, and that is like, if he's stretching on this side of the back, he's also like squishing on his abdomen area, and this is like the sign of it. And the one who's actually copying it, just won't do it, because okay, he's like, yeah, the hand is just blocking the body, so why should I think about it? But you have to have that vision in your mind that, yeah, I'm just going for the function, I'm not drawing the body itself. So here, what is happening, so he's like stretching here, but I know that he's being squashed on this to this abdomen area. Okay, so I'm going to make that too. And this is why we say, we actually tell people to be free. Okay, like being free of like being loose. Okay, so when you're being loose, you're trying to like find the answers to it, and when we don't see it, we're just like, oh no, you maybe need to like get that looseness, in your drawing, so that we can see that you're actually trying to find those functions. Okay, and not just copying it. Anyways, I'm still going for the function, I'm not drawing the body. Right, and you can still see that it's actually coming out. So no, who cares about the hand anatomy at this stage? I'm just like trying to get that hand landed on the under that knee, trying to get the support out of it. And yeah, trying to get going for the function. So I'm just like being more specific to some areas where I want like uh, like focus to go. It's like, oh, that actually appreciating his efforts. That, you know, oh my God, he's doing this, and with his back area, he's actually pushing his back up. You know, this other back up. So I want that in my drawing, that to show that efforts. Okay. And now, like, look here. Now the force is actually coming from his neck, back to the neck to the head. So I really want that as well. Yeah, so something like this. And with his other arm, still not going for the body, just doing my studies. And this is my study. You know, your studies can be differently based upon topic. So let's say you're doing anatomy, okay, and you're just like, yeah, I want to get specific to the anatomical parts, okay. So your study may be different, but the base will remain same, that you are actually trying to study, not copy, okay. So how you study anatomy, you don't start with the muscles itself. First you will get the gesture of it, okay, the flow of it, the energy of it, and then you just like using your anatomical knowledge on top of that, and the form knowledge and whatever, you know, whatever you need to get that thing out in your drawing. uh yeah, something like this. I'm trying to land this hand, okay, something like this. And yeah, going for the function, you know? So it's a kind of irony that, you know, I'm not going for the function, but I'm it's actually that all the function that my study is actually recreating the body. Now I can be more what I would say, like clear and accurate in it. Maybe I just like fill out the opacity a little bit, knock down the opacity, make a new layer, and try to be a little bit more accurate, you know, with my drawing. That, yeah, I just want to land some face features or something like this. But this is not what my point is right now. But I'm just like letting you know that you can do it, right? So yeah. So how much time we got?
I would say we got about 7 more minutes, 10 more minutes.
Okay, so let's do another one. Do you want to make any point in here, you, Swanley? Or
I think I'd like you, before you leave, I would say it'd be interesting for you to keep going in here and study, you know, like what else can we get out of this? How do you get maybe, you know, learn more about this pose? Imagine it is a study and you're going to, like Michelangelo or someone, you're going to do a painting of this. What do you need to get out of here? Like, I'd like to see more form and more anatomy. Like, what are you going to learn?
sure, why
This
not?
is a learning exercise.
Yeah, why not? So, because I just did a study of force, I'm gonna knock down some of the things here. Okay, I will do more, as you said, like the study of it. Okay, so I'm gonna get some little bit of form in here. Okay, something like this. I'll be like try to be more accurate with it. Okay, so now actually my studying is kind of advancing. Okay, that I'm just going for the anatomical landmarks. Maybe like some form here. Okay.
Yeah, and talking about study, I think it's good to mention that you know one of the ways to test it is you want to walk away, to Mike's point, with enough information and understanding that you can then apply to your imagination work. You know, if you're just copying, then once the reference is taken away from you, then you have nothing. You know, you just train your eye to see, which is good, but that's not enough. Especially as a designer, you need information that you can then use to create things of your own. So that's a good test, I think. Like, could you, for example, recreate this pose from imagination? Like, if you really studied it and understand it, you can do that easily.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah. Yeah. What else can you get out of this, Matunjay? Right. You got Michael here in this pose. What can you squeeze out of it when it comes to information? You know?
Yeah, I can squeeze out like too much of form in here. You know? That's
Yeah, a lot more form can come in.
yeah,
Some of the anatomy, even the
yes, and
perspective of the ground, like how his feet are placed. Like, I'd
yeah,
like to see, you started implying the sense of his torso touching his hips and the roundness there, but you could see the edge of his lats wrap over and around that.
hmm, yep,
Yeah, like imagine you're in the Renaissance now, and Michael's here for only a few more minutes, and then you're supposed to go create a painting of him in the Sistine Chapel, right? So what do you need, right?
It's an honor.
Yes, it is. So you have the pressure of like, oh God, this guy's leaving. He's going back to Austria tomorrow. He's here only today. Now I need to get all this info from him, and I need whatever I can get because he's leaving in 5 more minutes, right? I need information, right?
Yeah.
Your information gathering. You know, I just, for all of you out there, I had a mentorship meeting this morning with one of the mentees who lives in Ireland, and she was showing me her sketchbook, and she was bringing up this, she has some new sketchbooks and she was afraid of like going into them and drawing into them. I said, you know, I have to admit, for me, that's kind of such an interesting idea, because to me, sketchbooks were never about trying to create good artwork. Sketchbooks to me are where I go learn, you know, like that's where I go. It's my diary, right? They're not meant to create nice pieces of art. If I were to do that, then I go to like a nice piece of Bristol paper, like something more expensive, right? And that sucks, because that is when the stress kicks in, right? But when you have a sketchbook, that's me looking at the world, that's me studying the world. It doesn't matter if it's drawing a leaf or going on location and drawing. You know, I don't usually like try to create pretty pictures in there. I tried to do that actually in the latest sketchbook I have, and it's fine. It's okay to like try to create those illustrations, but I would say if you're at the beginning of your career, better to, I think, use your sketchbook like Leonardo da Vinci. I come back to him, like, this is where you go learn. You're drawing, you're an artist, right? So the way you learn is by drawing, right? That is your drawing. And that, by the way, is the big secret, if there's any, to drawingforce.com. That's what we're doing all the time. I'm not there to teach people how to make pretty drawings. I'm there to teach people to use drawing as a language on how to learn. And we happen to be learning that force is a big deal, right? Force is something we want to learn about. We want to learn about form and perspective and line that creates, form that moves. And we want to learn about shape design and anatomy and all these other things, but force is the driving function. But the drawings, they become beautiful not for the sake of beauty, they become beautiful for the sake of the humility and confidence and understanding of the student learning, right? This is them learning. When I look at everyone's work come in every week, I'm like, what did they learn? I'm looking at these drawings, and I can tell when somebody is edging in on, they're trying to make something pretty, because the learning kind of goes down. Right? There's things that they're not getting in there. The learning curve goes down because they're pushing for pizzazz, you know, for some panache instead. And I'm like, this is all bullshit. You know what you're doing over here. I want to see you working. You know, that's what I'm looking for, and that's what we want to try to share with you.
Yeah, I can even like make separate studies here, just like, you know, I didn't get the hand very right.
Right,
So
exactly. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, go do another study, right? Zoom in on the hand and like do a study of the hand. That's exactly right.
yeah,
Not only did, you know, Mattesi toned it in, so now he's like, okay, I'm thinking about the silhouette. What's going on over here? Oh, let me do a close up on the hand. You might go do anatomy on the hand, right? You might have little doodles of other things, right? When I look at Michael here, speed skater comes to mind. I might have reference photographs of skaters next to me, right? There's all kinds of different stuff that happens. That's you like being creative, right? You're drawing and you're being creative, you're learning. And that, to me, that's exciting. Nothing beats that, you know, and I want to try to help all of you understand that headspace, you know.
yeah, I can make like a separate study to it, something like this. I didn't get the form, like didn't get the foot right here, so I can make it here, you know. So I just run out, run out of space. I can do a separate study of that in here as well, you know. Yeah, so I'm just like messing up with the space right now, but yeah, that's okay. We're under 2021, so we can move space. Yep, some separate studies of that, maybe something like this. I can wrote notes in here. It's kind of like a journaling. So
Yes, I love where you're going now. Exactly. Yeah, handwritten notes. You should have your own little notes, little arrows pointing at things, right? This is where we're going, guys, right?
this, and maybe like, yep, maybe like blue color. I'm just want to use some colors, just like, oh, this is like squashing here, right? You cannot see it, but it's there. The force is coming from here, going to front, something like this. Some arrows. I can wrote notes in here, just like, yeah, like uh, hunched back or something like this.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can even make like 4 paragraphs. I don't need to be like limited to what I want to remember. Again, I love the thought of what we discussed before. It's like your sketchbooks are your diary to an artist. Okay, artists don't write in their diaries, but they do draw in them. Okay, so yeah, you want to include that as well. Maybe it's not just only about the figure. You can also write about your experience. Oh no, this is a great day. Okay, and something like this. I had this amazing model, and this amazing model that posed for me for this minute, like XX minutes, and I had a great experience with him. So yeah, this is where I would go with the study.
In a way, imagine for all of you, when you have your sketchbook or your paper, you're creating your own forced drawing book, right? This is what I go through when I write the books for you guys. Is I go through having to write notes and figure things out, and my sketchbooks are full of those things that allow me to actually build the books, right? It's like I have to figure things out and write down notes and solve what I'm looking at. How do clothes work, right? What does that look like? What are the different types of apparel? I got to go do the research and then draw, and I write notes and draw and write notes, and all that information leads up to the actual figure drawings. But I had to do a ton of research in order to get there, you see. So when you're learning how to draw, your notes are based on the how to draw ideas, right? What are the different forces here? I have to write notes about that. How does perspective work? How does form work? What is the anatomy? What are the shapes? Those are the things you're writing notes about. Those are the things you draw over and over again to figure things out, to understand how to draw something like the human body.
Yeah, and it is like a
Smelling a giant's hand. Daniel, they were starting to go a little idea crazy with Kyla leading the charge, and Daniel wrote, yeah, he looks like he's smelling a giant's hand, or maybe a giant's foot. Right.
yeah.
All right, guys. So let's wrap it up and get it over to Swenley so he can show us how he's going to start using
Sure.
his photograph as an inspiration point, right?
Sure. Thank you, people.
Yeah, thank you, Mritunjay. That was awesome. I love where you took it.
Yeah, Daniel said you're going to start sculpting in marble pretty soon.
Right.
I really
And
want
by
to
the
learn
end of this year. Yeah,
that.
exactly. Stone sculpting next.
All right, so let's see. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, now let's have some fun. And so like Mike mentioned, I'm going to use the reference as inspiration to design and see what ideas, the reference inspired me with. And I'm going to use primarily force, shape, and proportions to express those ideas. So let's see. And before you can design, first of all, you have to understand the real thing. Otherwise you have no foundation to like design on, and things will start to fall apart. So I still want to keep in mind the functionality of the pose. She needs to be balanced, and she's pulling on that rope. So let's start here and see what comes out. And this requires a bit of risk taking because there's no guarantee that any kind of great drawing is going to come out. This is just me exploring ideas, and having fun with it. So as you can see, I'm using this shape to direct force into this shape of the pelvis. And I can see this is rounded, looking for the top of the pelvis there, getting the V shape in there. Now, proportion-wise, like because she's leaning towards us, like her torso is. If I were to draw, if I were to use like a bounding box here, like this is somewhat shorter than this. This larger, actually, all the way over here. You know, so I see those ideas. I see these abstractions, and I use them in my drawing to see how I can make this more exciting. So I have the torso here. Now I want to establish a balance. Of course, I'm thinking about how that thigh fits into the pelvis, and it's coming out here. So just simple straights and curves to begin with. And this is flowing into let's see, I can see a strong angle happening from here to here, so I can play with that a little bit. Let's see what comes out. You can see the roundness of the heel. This one, let me make this slightly smaller so I can fit the whole figure. Right, so this leg is stretching, and I want to make sure I get that dynamic angle. Looking at the relationship of the feet. And actually I want to reposition this leg a little bit just for better balance. So let's see. Oops. Okay, this seems to work better. And as Mattesi pointed out earlier, you want to keep things loose so it's easier to make changes. All right, I have this here. I want this pulling that's going on. Just holding the rope here. Get some form in the torso. Of course, there's a twist. Okay, I can establish somewhat of a base for her to stand on, just so it doesn't look like the figure is floating. Feel all the applied force on that shoulder, and this arm is stretching. And she's holding that rope. As you can see, I go over the whole drawing a couple of times and I keep checking and correcting to see how I can better communicate my ideas. Like, one thing I see with students is that you can see that they literally drew the line one time, and try to get everything perfect in one stroke. And I keep telling them to keep working on the drawing. You're analyzing, you're studying, you're playing with design in this case, which again, there is no guarantee that this is going to be any kind of perfect design in one shot. So give yourself the freedom to just play around.
Hey guys, not to harp, but we have over 170 viewers, around 170. So if you do hit the like and we break the 150, we have a surprise for you guys. So hit the likes if you're here. Yeah, we have the numbers, so you guys can definitely do it.
Oh,
Yep.
nice. It's our 42 Force Friday.
Yeah, 42nd Force Friday in a row today. Yeah, all right, there we go. It's starting to tick up. Yeah, for those of you that are new, if we break 150, we have a surprise. We'll pick someone from the audience that for next week, and we'll pick a winner, and somebody will receive something based on drawingforce.com. Sorry,
A marble sculpture from Mitunje.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
David, a new interpretation of the David by Mattesi.
Hit million likes for that.
That's right. 1 million likes for Mattesi.
Let's see. So this is my first pass, and let me just reduce the opacity and see how we can refine this further and maybe even make some changes, because I can maybe even, like, based on function, I wanted to pull even more, so I apply more force on that torso, and let's see what happens.
Certainly, there's a question for you by Brianna.
Mm-hmm.
So, does it always have to be curved to straight? If it were me, I would have had the curve at the bottom of the thighs. So you have something to say about it?
Functionally, yes, because the thing is, the muscle at the bottom of the thigh isn't big enough to create the force curve. Like the quadriceps at the top creates a longer, more forceful curve. It's a similar situation as with the biceps and triceps. You see artists often draw an arm like this, like the curve at the biceps, and this would be the forearm. But I always use the example of a bodybuilder. If you look at the bodybuilder's arm, you will see that the triceps is huge. It's a huge muscle, and the biceps, in contrast, is just this tiny little bump. It's the triceps that creates the larger, more forceful curve of the body. So the straight to curve design is based on the anatomy, and of course you can break that, but just be aware that you are departing from the truth, from anatomical truth if you do that.
So we're basically calling you a liar otherwise. You're a non-force liar. So now you're pushing stuff, right? So you've given her a bigger pelvis, it looks like, right? You're angling the leg out further.
Yeah, indeed. Like with the second pass, I start taking more risks. Like the first pass is most of the time it's a bit more careful, especially if I've not been warming up. And then I'm like, man, I don't care. I'm just going to push this stuff. And ironically, when you stop caring, that's when the best stuff comes out. Now I really want this leg to be all the way here. I'm going to like exaggerate what's going on with the top of the foot right there. It's a lot of power, so maybe I give her bigger forearms like Popeye, you know, so she has a lot of power to pull on that rope. Maybe tiny hands. Let's see, I really want to feel that stretch. Now it's hooking around. So it's all based on ideas, you know, what ideas am I seeing in the reference? So the stretching of the chest area here. Look for the pit of the neck. And the head is kind of like, or the hair is kind of like round. The back and goes over the head, the ear. Get the eye line in here. And this hair is like popping out at the back.
Keep hitting those likes, guys. We're almost at 100, and we've had at least 175, 178 viewers at one shot. So we're at 180 right now from what I'm seeing. So we could definitely break the 150 with no problem.
Yeah, we've got a great surprise for you guys.
Do it, do it.
Yeah.
All right, so I can get rid of this one. And I can add a curve here, but it would be much shorter because even if you look at the reference, like notice that the curve and this is straight, you know, and at the top you have a longer curve created by the muscles.
Starting
The
to move
knee.
into like Wonder Woman land.
Exactly. Yeah, you have the knee sticking out. Here I can start refining a bit more. I can add the calf in here. Same here, I can add a little curve, but I don't want to overpower the other side. And all I want at this stage is the idea. You know, I can always refine later on, and that just takes time, but the idea must be there. So I'm playing with the design, but I still kept the functionality, like the story is still there, you know, she's pulling on that rope. How much time do I have left?
I'd say like maybe 4 minutes.
Okay. Let's see. I can do another quick pass. I'll start define the structure a bit more. Thinking about the neck and how it fits into on the top of the torso. Any more questions from the chat?
Nope, everyone's saying how they want a sculpture. They love the hair shape and they love where the design's going. Don said, I always see very strong angles in Swenley's drawings. It makes them powerful.
Yeah, indeed. Like angles are super important to create that sense of dynamism.
You're a shape master.
Yes.
Thank you. If you keep telling me that, I might believe it.
Brainwash you into it.
Yeah, so the shapes are based on the function, even though I'm designing it, it's still based on what's going on in the reference. Maybe do a bit of sculpting here to get the roundness. Just trying to push the straight to curve design a bit more. Still want like this sharp angle here.
All right, I'll give it 2 more minutes.
Okay. I really want this pull here, this connection to the shoulder. I don't want to lose that. So I draw through to make sure that the idea remains clear. some the shape of the biceps here. You can see the triceps sticking out. So it's key to stay loose even when refining, so you don't lose the vitality that you work so hard for in the initial sketch. All right, I think this is good enough because you also had some closing thoughts, right, Mike?
Yes, that's right. Thanks for reminding me. All of a sudden, the chat has exploded about mentorship because I said we're going to be going through some changes, and Discord came up, and there's like a whole other thing going on. I feel like I like lit a bomb. Sorry, guys. All right, so good job, Swanley. I love where you got this. Hopefully you can all see that this is obviously based off of this reference, right? Like, it's not like Swanley created this giant abstract painting and we're like, what's the connection here? And you could do that and that'd be fine, but you could see this is from this photograph, but with his, laser focused sense of clarity of abstraction, he's gotten us to this really clearly shaped, designed version, right? His version of the model, right? So yeah, and it just makes it clearer, right? It's even clearer as to what she's doing. So nice job.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. All right, let's toss it back to me. I have some closing thoughts for you guys. I thought I would share with you, how do you do this, right? Someone in the audience asked about, so did we answer the question, is it better to draw from imagination or to draw from reference? And I said, I really put that out there as a trick question today. I don't think the answer is either. I think it's both. I think the goal is to get in the middle, right? So what I've been doing with some of the students in mentorship just recently is, how to bridge the gap, right? So from the beginning, I'm trying to have you already bridge the gap because we're trying not to copy the model. We're trying to understand the model and analyze the model, study the model, as Mrityunjay did today, right? There's other ways. So here's 3 different assignments that I share with you that you can go try out on your own. How do you bridge the gap? So you'll notice in each one of them, step number 1 is draw from reference. Okay, so we want to just draw from the reference, study the reference, and learn. So you can see the word learn there is in brackets. You could put study in there in place of learn, right? Study the reference. So in the first assignment, then go draw the model without the reference. So you've studied the model, you've learned from the reference, now put the reference aside and just go draw. Okay, so this is a way of bridging the gap. You've got to now take what you learned and see if you could just draw and try to remember, right, recall what was going on, right? So now if you were tracing, you can't trace anymore, right? You can't quote unquote copy, you have to like actually draw the model, right? So that's the first one. The second one is you can try this with or without the reference on the second stage, because the idea is push the pose. So my suggestion would be, this is kind of what Swanley did today, right? Like draw from reference, then with the reference there, try to push the reference. You can push in a lot of different ways. You can push through shape and design. You can push depth, you can push force, right? It's a lot of different things to push. So you can do it with the reference there, but then I would say in the end, do it without the reference. Right. So, or you can just draw the model realistically, study them and then go, okay, I'm going to put it aside. I'm going to try to push what I just learned. Right. So again, it's another way of bridging the gap. We're going from reference to not having reference and trying to push the pose itself. Last but not least, this one is super tricky. The idea here is to draw from reference. And then with or without reference, again, try drawing the model from a different perspective, right? If you wanted to get bonus points, you could say, I'm going to draw the model from a different perspective and I'm going to push the pose, right? So yeah, tricky, right? Like we're always so accustomed to just getting what is given to us as to like, here's what the model is doing. They're standing in this pose. You want to study it and learn it. Imagine all of a sudden taking the camera and moving it 180 degrees all the way on the other side, and maybe it's up on the ceiling instead of down, looking right at the model. How do you do that? All right. And then try to do that from imagination, right? So take what you've learned, and that's why you're drawing that model that first time. That'll hopefully also get you out of copying, because you got to draw from imagination after this, right? So you're going to be more studious, right, when you draw from reference, and then you're going to try to take all that education and bring it over to drawing without reference. And that, like I said, that's a great way of starting to bridge the gap if you're someone who's not accustomed to drawing from imagination. And I guarantee what will happen is when you draw from imagination, if things start falling apart, you're going to start realizing, oh, I don't know enough about anatomy. I don't know enough about form. I don't know about force and the templates, right? Otherwise, I should be able to move through this pretty fast and understand the pose. I didn't really get that out of my study, right? Last week, for those of you that are here today, go back and check out how we did figure drawings in under 1 minute, right? We did 1 minute gesture drawings. 1 minute, if you understand the whole body, I can go take that body, I could push it, we could draw from a different perspective, right? Because I know what the template's going to be. I know how the body's going to work and move in that particular pose, right? That gives me the freedom to draw from imagination, right? So any questions before we leave? Thanks, guys. It was great. Thanks for all the advice. Thank you, guys. Thanks for sticking around, of course, as always, and learning from us. And let's see, every Friday is a force party. Yes, Kyla. With Kyla here, it is force party. Thanks for being here, Kyla. Thank you, Mritunjay and Swenley, for, again, sharing your skills with the audience. And hopefully we've inspired you guys to bridge the gap, right? Bridge the gap. The answer to today's question, again, is it's in the middle. Draw from reference as if you're drawing from imagination. Draw from imagination as if you were drawing from reference. Bring the two together, okay? And I stick with this. Thank you, everyone. We will see you guys next Friday. Take care, guys.
Yes, see you guys.
All right,
Bye-bye.
see you guys. Bye-bye. Have a great week.